Welcome to another episode of the Holistic Healing Podcast with Lorrie. So today we are thrilled to have Jennifer Mulder with us. And Jennifer is a psychologist, a patient expert, and author of this ebook, which I'm really excited about, How to Create Your Own Action Plan for Recovery, which I think is just amazing. We're going to be talking about that during our time together. And she has turned her own personal journey with chronic illness into a mission to help others to navigate their own health challenges. So welcome, Jennifer.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Lorrie. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm always interested in my guests' origin stories.
Mhm.
So what led you to become a psychologist and a patient expert?
When I was 13 years old, I got mononucleosis from the Epstein-Barr virus. And I ended up staying home from school for about 3 months with exhaustion and general malaise until things sort of got back to normal again. But then over the next year, my shoulders and neck and back and rib cage increasingly started to hurt. And it turned out that inflammation was the onset of juvenile rheumatism. And later on, medical specialists also diagnosed me with ME/CFS and fibromyalgia. So for about 15 years, I struggled with inflamed joints, all over body pain, an all-consuming fatigue, insomnia, and brain fog. And I spent most of my waking hours at home, often unable to go to school, hang out with friends, or just have fun. And obviously that made me feel sad and lonely and frustrated with everything that I had to miss out on at times.
Yeah, you didn't get to be a kid, did you?
No, I missed out on a lot of the typical teenage things. I did some, but not the complete teenage or student experience, no. But my sickest years were in the late 90s and early 2000s. And at that time, I was just given a diagnosis, or in my case 3, and some medication to manage the symptoms and some physical therapy, and that was it. There were no easily available resources to show me how to deal with the practical problems and the mental limitations and the emotional roller coaster that so many sick people go through. And the internet was still in its infancy, so getting a widespread variation of reliable health information was much harder than it is today. So I had to figure out on my own how to study from home, unable to attend classes while also dealing with word finding problems and poor attention span. I had to figure out by myself, with the love and support of my family, I must say, how to deal with difficult feelings like health anxiety and worries about the future and the frustration of the unfulfilled potential. I experimented for many years with how to do practical stuff, like how do you keep your home somewhat clean and organized when you have limited energy? How do you get through a workday when you're in pain? Or even how to maintain friendships when you often can't join in on the fun. So with the health sessions, I really wanted to create that place that you can turn to with tried and tested tips on all of these issues, as well as somewhere that you can find a little hope that you will be able to live a meaningful life with and despite of your health problems.
Beautiful, beautiful. And it sounds like we were both at our sickest point around the same time, because it was early 2000s for me as well. And because the internet thing, people don't realize how much information they have access to.
And connection to people, and even finding doctors or treatment therapies or all kinds of things. That was still, I still had the paper pamphlets. It's hard to imagine now, but yeah, that is definitely something that played a role in making me want to do what I do now, wanting to be a good resource for people.
Yes, beautiful. Now, with your own healing journey, what were some of the most helpful things for you to either alleviate, or if you were able to recover from the juvenile rheumatism, the ME/CFS, and the fibromyalgia?
I think it's important to mention that it was not one specific thing that helped me to recover, but more the stacking of small healthy habits and small improvements over time that eventually broke the downward health spiral I was in and even built a positive spiral. And also what worked for me back then may not work for anybody listening because everybody's different. Having said that, when I first became ill as a teenager, I tried everything I could to get better, from experimental drug treatments to alternative therapies. But nothing really worked for long. So eventually I took a long break from really trying to heal. And I focused the little energy I had on getting my degree and making memories instead of always working on trying to get better. It wasn't until I got married and really wanted to become a mom that I gave it a serious try to get to a higher level of functioning again. With that specific goal in mind, I started an anti-inflammatory diet based on the principles of Dr. Andrew Weil and Patrick Holford to help reduce the inflammation in my body. I had regular massages and acupuncture to help ease the pain and to also get me into a deeper state of relaxation to support the healing process. I'd always hated having to rest and I often resisted it. So doing it like halfway, just lying down, but not really resting. And then my mind shift changed and I thought it wasn't really, I saw real rest as a crucial part of my recovery. So I swapped the relaxing with a TV series for, not always, but more short meditations and breathing exercises and mindful body scans. And finally, I designed my own walk training program to slowly increase my mobility and my fitness and also my independence, being able to move, to function practically. And it took me almost 2 years, but eventually all of these things combined helped me to taper off my arthritis medication and become healthy enough to start a family.
Wow, that's such a beautiful story.
Yeah, and in more recent years, I've also found spending time outdoors, especially catching the early morning daylight, and exercise snacking, so adding small bursts of gentle activity throughout the day instead of doing a longer workout session, both to be really helpful and accessible ways to improve my overall well-being.
Beautiful, beautiful. And a lot of the strategies that you're talking about here is what I also teach in my relief and transformation course and membership program. And I think that these are things that we finally come to after years of learning our bodies.
Yes.
Yeah, so to be able to bypass having to learn that over years and years and years, to learn from somebody like you makes things so much easier.
And from you as well, of course, yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing those. That's very helpful. And one of the first things actually that I recommend for people is to do twice daily meditations. And that is radical rest for 30 minutes twice a day or more. And that's exactly what you're talking about there.
Yes.
It's not, we think that we're resting when we're lying down in bed.
But, exactly. Or just most of us do it with a phone or with a TV series because our body is resting. We think but it doesn't activate the relaxation response in our body the way that more other techniques like the one you're talking about do.
Yes. I love that you said that. I love it. So how has your own personal experience with these chronic illnesses, how has that influenced your approach to psychology and to patient care?
Well, on the health sessions, I want to give actionable advice on the practical, emotional, and cognitive problems related to chronic illness. I try to shed some light on some issues that are often overlooked by medical professionals that you can speak to face, like your doctor or your physical therapist. Like, for example, so many people deal with emotional loneliness, that feeling that nobody understands what you're going through. And it's very hard to find anyone who gives you advice about how to deal with brain fog, because it's still it's not something that doctors will talk to you about, but also how to actually do everyday tasks that we're all meant to do when you're in pain or struggling with other debilitating symptoms. And what's more, I try to provide accessible strategies to manage your symptoms and boost your energy levels, including tips on how you can actually put a lot of lifestyle strategies that we all know into practice when you're too exhausted to move your body or put a healthy meal on the table. So those are the two things that I really learned from my own experience and try to take into my own work now.
And I understand that you've actually reached your own definition of what you consider to be recovery. Can you elaborate some on what that means to you?
Yes, well, fortunately nowadays I no longer meet the diagnostic criteria of any of the diseases we talked about. But being sick for so long clearly left its marks on my body, and there are still some things that I cannot do. So for me, recovery does not necessarily mean that you are fully healed, that you're fully back to your former health. I think sometimes a disease can be too complex, or the medical options are not sufficient, or sometimes your body is just too weakened at this time to reach that point of full healing. But that doesn't mean that small improvements or small changes can't make you feel a little healthier, a little happier, a little more energetic. For example, even if you're just able to sleep better at night, that will boost your mood and your energy levels during the day, and it will support your overall immunity, maybe making you less suspicious to the next virus if you tend to do that. And I know from experience that being able to move around on foot again, that literally opens up the world of possibilities. So to me, recovery can be any physical, mental, or emotional improvement, but also a better quality of life, or being able to do something again that you could not do before, even if it's just picking up your hobby. And in my case, I can now work part-time, take care of my kids, and socialize with friends, and explore the world with my family. So even though there's still room for improvement, I'm very content with how far I've come.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know also that for myself and every other person that I've spoken to who has fully recovered or partially recovered, mostly recovered, that you really develop a whole new appreciation for these small things that you can do again.
Yes, definitely.
I remember at one point taking a very gentle yoga class and looking around the room and just almost this kind of out-of-body experience of, do these people realize how amazing it is that their bodies are all working properly, that they're able to move like this and to do these, this simple yoga class?
I had that thing because I started my last attempt to get better while wanting to become a mom. I had all these visions of what I wanted to be able to do with my kids. And one of the most simplest things is the Dutch mom thing, because I live in the Netherlands, cycling your kids to school with one in front of you and one in the back. And that's so normal for everyone here. But when I did that, I had my husband take a picture. Like, this is a unique moment. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's so beautiful. Now, let's talk about this ebook. I mean, I feel like the title says it all, How to Create Your Own Action Plan for Recovery.
Yes.
I mean, who doesn't want that? So what can our readers expect to gain from it?
Well, How to Create Your Own Action Plan for Recovery is a step-by-step guide for people who want to rebuild their health after illness. And it contains simple ideas on the 4 essential elements of the recovery progress, namely restoration. So what we talked about, how to deeply relax your body and mind to get into a healing state. Some science-backed guidelines on how you can nourish yourself with nutrient-rich foods and how to actually put that into practice when you're already tired. Rebuild, how to gradually get your strength and fitness back. And 4th, how to regain your focus with strategies to boost your attention span as a basis for your overall cognitive functioning. But it's not a standard follow this advice and you'll be healed kind of book. So instead of following a program with outline exercises and recipes, this guide will show you how you can create your own definition of recovery, as well as your own action plan tailored to your specific health and living situation. So I'm not selling any miracle cures, but my hopes are that this guide will help you just to feel a little less pain, a little more energy, and support your overall health and happiness.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah. And we already touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to hear more about how your priorities have changed because of the chronic illness and kind of how you view your life now, how that has shifted.
Well, it's a cliche, but having limited energy forces you to really focus on the people and the activities that matter most to you. So practically, because I had to miss out on so much when I was younger, every season now I make a list with all the things that I would love to do. And we try to find ways to make many of them happen, even if it's in a modified way or not exactly, but to get that underlying feeling or experience. When it comes to perspective in life, I think that the biggest silver lining that I've gained from being chronically ill is noticing and appreciating the simple good things in life. During the pandemic lockdowns, my then 6-year-old daughter said to me, "Mama, you're really good at making the bad things in life feel a little better." And yeah, that was the biggest compliment. But I also think that that is just a skill that I've really learned during all my sickest years. And although something like the pandemic showed us that no one can avoid hardship or heartache, I honestly believe that cultivating small moments of joy and contentment can really help to make the big bad things in life just feel a little more bearable.
I want to give everybody a few moments just to take that in. So, yeah, I talk about that kind of ad nauseum as well myself. So, y'all, it's not just me.
It's all over the world. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And we could go into a lot more detail about how sometimes you're just not in that place where you can find those small things, and that's okay too. But
yes.
yeah.
No, sometimes everything is just feels bad. And that's okay. I didn't always feel this way. It's something, like I said, it's a skill that I've learned over time.
Yeah, it's a practice for sure. Yeah, I love that. So as we wrap up, what advice would you give to someone who is maybe new to managing chronic illness, and then also to someone who has been having to manage chronic illness for a while now?
Well, great question. If you've recently been diagnosed with chronic illness, make room for all your feelings. The sadness, the despair, the shock, the anger. There's no right or wrong way to react to this news. And just remember that even if it doesn't feel this way now, you will not feel that way forever. Take one step at a time. Do not look too far ahead into the future. And do not try to do every healing method that you come across all at once. And if you search thehealthsession.com for guides to getting diagnosed with chronic illness, you will find many more tips on how to cope when you've recently been diagnosed. And for those of you who've been struggling with chronic illness for a while now, I'd like to say, as much as your health impacts every aspect of your life, and I know that it does, do not fully identify yourself with your illness. Accept your current reality, but always leave a little hope in your heart for better days ahead.
Which I really appreciate. Yeah, so we're going to put your contact information in the description so that people can reach out to you and find out how to work with you and things like that. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And thank you for everything you do for our community.